Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Guy Horowitz. I'm a partner with a fund called Deutsche Telekom Capital Partners. As the name might suggest, we are related to Deutsche Telekom. We're the venture fund backed by Deutsche Telekom. We're investing out of a $500 million, rather, euro fund into growth stage and some early stage companies across different enterprise technologies. And I'm just back from Barcelona, where I don't know if any of you have been to Mobile World Congress before. Just show of hands. Any of you have been to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona? Okay, keep your hand up if you ever saw snow during Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Okay, that's what I thought. We had at least one day of snow there, which was about the only new thing in Mobile World Congress. People were commenting about the fact that, 13 years into this setup and before that in the Riviera in France, and things have not been changing a lot. I can tell you that what has been changing is also something that we should be observing here in the blockchain conference and the conferences to come, is that it started as a catch-all because there was not much. So mobile, 20 years ago, or 3GSM as it was called, was where everyone came to meet because other people would not know what you talked about. And gradually, over the years, it became not just a catch-all, but an amalgamation of everything. To the extent that nowadays you cannot find, it's like CES, you cannot find your arms and legs in the conference. And I think they should break it down into different conferences according to topics. So hopefully, those blockchain conferences that we're attending will also grow and at some point kind of break down into the different topics and areas of focus, because we do have several combined or, let's call them glued kind of topics that are potentially related one to the other, but they're not necessarily the same thing. We have on stage 2 participants in the ecosystem. We should be having a third one at some point. Right? Okay, we'll figure that out in a second. But covering 2 very different parts of the ecosystem. On the one hand, we have a bank, or a representative of a bank, who's going to tell us what banks are doing in blockchain and whether that's exploration or that's already the strategy they're executing on. And with that, is that a challenge to a bank or is that an opportunity? I think it's going to be both, but you're going to tell us. On the other, we have a company that's leveraging or building upon blockchain and the distributed ledger in order to build something that was not in existence before and help others actually build on top of that. So we're going to kind of look at blockchain or the distributed ledger from 2 angles. What I do want to ask both of you, and if we ever get a third person on stage, we'll ask the same, is not to agree with each other. I think we have too much agreement here since this morning, and I think we're going to have too many people saying, yeah, what he said, what she said. And I want to add to that, please, none of that. If you agree, it's fine. If you disagree, and I think we're at liberty at this early stage of the industry, we're at liberty not to agree about many things. So I hope that's going to be the case today, otherwise people are going to be slightly more bored than they are right now. So with that, I want to turn the mic over to our participants. Each of them will present him or herself, what they're doing within their company, and also I'd ask, what does blockchain or distributed ledger mean for them as a first, let's call it as a first take, or as a first idea of how they're meeting or connected to the topic. So please.
Hi, good morning. Gideon Greenspan, CEO of Coin Sciences. We develop a platform called Multichain, which is a popular platform for building enterprise blockchain applications. If you've heard of Hyperledger or Enterprise Ethereum, we are a competitor to those other platforms with our own particular approach. To me, I would say that blockchains are almost completely misunderstood, and they are actually just a new type of database with particular characteristics. Specifically, if we're talking about enterprise blockchains, and those characteristics lead to a set of trade-offs compared to traditional databases, which make them suitable for some cases and unsuitable for other cases. And this suitability or unsuitability is something which almost everybody experimenting with blockchains today hasn't really thought about carefully enough. So I'll start with that controversial statement.
Hi everyone, my lead the business development team for emerging technologies at the innovation division of the bank. Well, I'm a business person, not a tech one. So my relations to the blockchain, well, I look at it as a new digital railway. It's a new possibility to do things. What? Sorry. It's a new railway, a new digital railway for us to be able to do things better, faster, possibly and hopefully even cheaper. And well, you know, achieve business goals that way. Not a tech company, after all.
Yeah, that's a good start. We have a railway from one end, and we have a database from the other. And had we had Ilya, which should have replaced Brianna on stage, we would have had a Hyperloop as well, because that's what R-Loop is doing. So hopefully at some point you'll get to meet the R-Loop people here, and you'll find out how Hyperloop connects to blockchain. So maybe I'll start both of you off with a question on this misunderstanding that we have. We have so many people sitting here thinking that blockchain is one thing. Maybe they believe blockchain to be more than one thing, but what they're doing is one specific thing. Where I think all of us, at least here from stage, can see that blockchain stands for different things for different people. So are we just too early in the life of this industry, in the life of this technology, this railway, this database? Or is it just so powerful and so important that everyone can connect to it in a different way?
Well, I'm not sure powerful more or less is the right way to measure it, and it can definitely be different things to different people.
Is it powerful though?
Well, obviously. However, I think the I'm going to start it different. Everybody says that 2018 is going to be the year in which blockchain is going to go mainstream. Now, I would argue that you're probably right. However, I still think that most people outside of this room, out there on the street, are not quite sure what blockchain is, what ICOs are, what kind of future they can create. Like similarly to the internet in the early 90s. So mainstream would be a bit too much for that aspect, I think. However, for people who are engaging in this area for the past, I don't know, probably 1 to 2 years, they'll say, oh, yeah, it's over the hill, come on, let's see it already.
Okay, I'll try to rephrase the question. I think I understand what you're saying is it's powerful, it's important, but it's not yet mainstream because people above the street level do not understand what it is.
True. However, when you look at the people who are engaging in the area, they say about 70% of the banking industry are looking or has already found relevant use cases for blockchain. So everybody's going to go at it sooner or later. Some already has, some will, or most probably will in the financial area. For other industries, I think 2018 will be the year to see how it goes.
Okay, I'll come back to you with that question on exactly that. But Gideon, obviously not too many people here thought that blockchain is a database before you said it right now. So obviously no one gets it, right? Why don't people get it? I mean, why are we so dense in that respect?
So it's important to begin by clarifying that different people use the word blockchain in different ways. And there's a big split down the middle between what we might call public blockchains, which are part and parcel of cryptocurrencies, and enterprise or private blockchains. Now these two worlds have a lot in common technically, but they are talking about completely different use cases, and they are of interest to completely different groups of people. So public blockchains and cryptocurrencies are a new type of asset, which we can debate whether it's good or bad, whether it's going to be big or small, but that is a fundamentally new type of asset that's entered the world. And the technical underpinning of it is this thing called a blockchain, which is a type of database. In the case of a public blockchain that supports a cryptocurrency, the database entries being managed are who owns how much of the cryptocurrency. That is the database, and that is something which is a database application with one column for the identities of the people and one column for the quantities of the asset owned. In the enterprise blockchain space, we're talking about essentially a new spanner in the toolkit for enterprise IT. So those of you who work in enterprise IT will know about relational databases, you'll know about messaging, you'll know about remote procedure calls, and blockchains are a new spanner in that toolkit. I don't believe they're going to revolutionize fundamentally the world of business. I think they're a useful tool, and they have many applications, including in the banking sector, though less than some people think. But perhaps that goes towards answering your question about why I consider it a database.
Okay. I've got to add my own perspective here. Coming back also from Barcelona, where, guess what? People were talking about blockchain also on stage in Mobile World Congress. So obviously it's related to mobile as well. No, actually the biggest announcement made there that's related to blockchain was the fact that Rakuten, who some of you know as the company who purchased Viber, but actually it's a pretty big internet media company in Japan, they announced that they're going to base their entire customer loyalty program on blockchain, specifically do an ICO and have a currency that loyal customers of Rakuten can use for purchasing services and exchanging services on top of their platforms, including Viber. So what I'm hearing is basically it's a new way to create currency, right? It's a new way for people to generate stuff that was not there before and use it in order to purchase or to interact around something. And I guess that's a common denominator to what you guys are saying, right? Be it an enterprise technology or what you call the public blockchain, that's just a way to create new stuff. But how is that different from any other technology that we had before? So how is it different from a new programming language? Or how is it different from a new banking system that allows us to do things differently? Why are people excited about this at all? Or maybe they shouldn't be.
Maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. I mean,
Okay, guys.
as I said, because of my perspective, it's a new digital framework. Today we have this, 10 years or 20 years earlier with the internet, and who knows where we'll be in 10 or 15 years from today. There will be something new that enables us, if you look at it from a business perspective, it enables you to do things in a different way. You know?
No, I'm gonna ask this. So you're in Bank Hapoalim, which is, I guess, the biggest bank in Israel, or one of the biggest banks in Israel? Depends on the day of the week. Okay. So yeah, one of the largest banks in Israel is adopting blockchain technology. Is that a true statement? And if it's true, is it something that customers are going to feel? Let's say we're going to pay less interest or pay less transactional fees. Are we going to have nicer applications, or are we consumers never ever going to feel that Bank Hapoalim has adopted blockchain?
Well, let me first say that yes, Bank Hapoalim is definitely adopting blockchain. It's going to take a while, but yes. Well, did you feel anything when your bank adopted any other technology? Not necessarily.
That's my point. Exactly. It's just another technology.
Right. Now, well, you can celebrate the fact that you're going with blockchain, but as long as it keeps servicing business purposes, so to say, behind the scenes, I do think that customers are going to feel a difference because the regular or banking procedures may be faster and cheaper and better. Not necessarily will they care if it's blockchain or anything else.
Okay, as an investor right now, I fear for my day job because people can raise money through ICOs easily and I guess cheaper in terms of equity than through my old method of taking equity for money. So I'm really concerned. Should anyone in the banking industry be concerned because of blockchain? Or is someone going to eat part of your breakfast or lunch because it makes banking stuff easier to do without a central system like the bank?
I think financial services were adopted or created outside of the banking system before nobody knew what blockchain was. So I'm not sure this is the reason to be completely scared. However, banking industry, just like any other industry, has to face competition. Be that blockchain now, fine. We will be probably something else the other day. And the banks need to, get themselves better, faster, cheaper to handle it.
Great, so banks are going to be faster and cheaper, enterprises are going to be faster and cheaper, right? Because you're the building block, you're providing the Lego bricks to do the blockchain, am I correct? How is that going to happen?
So, yeah, there are certainly cases where, as a new technology, enterprise or permissioned blockchains can make processes more efficient compared to how they are today. The specific problem they can help with is where you have multiple companies involved in some business process, and they all need to coordinate with each other and exchange data with each other and make sure they're all in agreement with each other. And a blockchain is essentially an efficient way for them to conduct that process. Okay, let's think of, I'll talk to you about something which is in production today on our platform. So there's a company in South America which develops software for infrastructural projects like building dams and so on. And an infrastructural project such as this has many stakeholders. It has the software development company, it has the local government authority, it has the contractor who's doing the building, it has the engineers, it has various people who have to come on site and check things match with the specifications. So what you have here is a process in which multiple parties are involved, and it's very important that these parties are all in agreement with each other about exactly what happened when and which documents were entered into the system when. It's not really comfortable for these parties, for business reasons, to put that archive of documentation under the control of a single party. Right? There's no single party that everyone in that group is willing to say, you be the keeper of all the documents, you be the keeper of all the timestamps, and we're all going to trust you. So they have a problem. How do they make sure they all agree about something without putting control of that thing under one party's systems, one party's database? And the answer is this is a problem that blockchain can solve. So yes, here's an example of how blockchains can make things cheaper and more efficient, because now all parties know in real time that they're all in agreement with each other about what happened and when it happened, without having to constantly email back and forth and have phone calls back and forth and send documentation back and forth. So that would be an example.
Okay, so if I was fearing for my job before, I think lawyers might be fearing for theirs as well, right? Because we don't need them if those smart contracts are there and could be signed or endorsed by all the parties participating. Is that a correct statement? Because every blockchain company that I've met over the past few months has legal people doing the legal side of what they're doing. So actually there's more work for lawyers, so I get confused. What do you think?
So yeah, the example I gave of a documentation archive for infrastructural projects has nothing to do with smart contracts. Although what the information that's going into that database are contracts, these are PDF documents. They are not smart contracts in the sense that people use the term smart contracts. So I wouldn't think that that kind of system would really affect the work of a lawyer. It's more likely to affect the work of an auditor and the work of the people whose job is to send documentation back and forth all day. Those are the people whose jobs may be reduced or replaced by this type of blockchain application. Notaries as well, as mentioned. Okay,
so one thing I'm pretty sure the audience here knows, and I probably don't, is which area in our current kind and state of affairs is the one that's most affected by blockchain. I would tend to say, from my kind of distant role in the industry, that investments or fundraising is the one that's being disrupted the most, or the one that's the most advanced. But obviously you guys dealing with real stuff that people are doing with distributed ledger and banking, you tell me that I'm wrong and there are many things that are going on that I'm just not aware of, right? So what's the biggest influence that you're seeing right now in your industries for blockchain?
Okay, so in banking it's quite easy if you look at it in terms of red and blue oceans. The red dirty oceans in the banking industry will handle mostly payments and trade finance. And people say, oh, that's the biggest opportunity and reason. That's the biggest story. So I was talking about the red and blue ocean theory, saying that in the banking industry, most people say that the red oceans for blockchain technology in the banking industry is mostly populated by payment solutions or platforms and trade finance. And people say, oh, that's the biggest opportunity there is for banking. But then when you consider it a little bit further, you see that the opportunity there mainly exists for the huge players, because you need just the market complexity is incredible, and you need to create standards, and it's not as easy as it sounds. However, when you look at blue DLT oceans for, again, banking industries, you see more niche solutions that are usually more relevant to local needs or procedures, but there I would argue that the potential is higher, or is definitely you're able to realize it sooner. And so, yes, what's your strategy?
So again, to go back to the two types of worlds we're talking about, in the world of enterprise blockchain, I don't think is going to fundamentally change many industries. If you want to consider what kind of transition we're looking at, for those of you who know the database world, there are relational databases, and there's a new type of database called a NoSQL database, which is a really big deal for people that work with databases, but I don't know how many people in the street who don't work in technology would be able to spot the difference. So I think it's something on that kind of scale. The world of public blockchains and cryptocurrencies holds at least the promise of a huge transformation to our economy and to our society. I'm a little bit skeptical that's going to happen, because primarily I don't think the person in the street wants to be responsible for holding their private keys, and until you solve that problem, it's essentially not a product which is suitable for the mainstream. For the same reason that we don't keep our money under our mattresses at home, even though we get 0% interest from the banks, I don't think people want to have that level of responsibility for their own money. ICOs as well, I think, are kind of interesting, and their curiosity. I believe they are going to be a fleeting phenomenon, certainly on this scale. There's almost no economic or technical logic behind the vast majority of them, and I think they will probably pass in this world in the next few years, simply because what we have now is a lot of people that made a lot of money from Ethereum, and that's essentially free money, and so they're playing with that money for fun. But I think once people actually have to start investing their salaries in an ICO, which makes no technical or commercial sense, I think we'll see a lot less money going into that market. So I wouldn't be too worried about your job in the long term. Maybe take a holiday, a vacation for a couple of years, come back and it'll all be okay.
Right, I'll do that immediately after lunch. I mean, we did hear Elon Musk commenting about the fact that we might be living in a virtual imagination simulation of sort. And what I'm hearing from you is basically a bunch of people who made money with Ethereum and Bitcoin are now toying with us. They're playing with us because they have the ability to do so. The question is, are they laying the ground for something more significant, or is it just, let's take ICO as an example. I believe many people here might be interested in the topic. Are people still going to be able to raise money on top of a blockchain or a distributed ledger type technology? Or will that go back to the old usual model? Going back also to banking, will people be lending money or borrowing money in a different way? Or is it just, a mechanism?
Well, I think it's safe to say, and this is my own personal opinion, not banks obviously, that the system, not necessarily the value, but the system is here to stay. The system of digital currencies and of ICOs is definitely here to stay. However, one can argue that P2P lending was possible way before the blockchain, and it's not that I've heard of any banks going bankrupt because of P2P lending and taking over the business. So yet. So I think the playground is big enough for everybody, and banks will have to decide once obviously the regulatory infrastructure is in place, if and when they want to take part in the game. I guess it will be sooner than later, and I'm also sure that traditional ways of commerce and banking will still go on.
Remind me the question, please.
Are we going to see anything built on top of the grounds or the basis that is being laid right now, or is it just, as you said, a game, it's going to go away and people will end up doing the same as they were doing before?
Yeah, so I think cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and they will probably grow in the long term to be a significant asset class, maybe something on the scale of gold or small cap stocks or junk bonds or something like that, which, you know, are all kind of niche financial assets, but they have the people that like them and people who invest in them, and they're certainly a part of the asset landscape. And I think that'll be the case with cryptocurrencies. So I'm long-term bullish on them, although no one knows what's going to happen in the short to medium term. I think also ICOs will probably be here to stay. I think there are good ICOs out there. I look at the Ethereum ICO, which sadly I didn't invest in, but nonetheless, I look at that in retrospect, $18 million raised in that ICO, and a huge technically important platform was built on top of that, which enabled a vast ecosystem. So to me, the amount raised was proportional to the work that had to be done and to the value that was generated. So I think certainly we'll have ICOs in the long term. I just think what we're seeing now is completely irrational market behavior, and that will go by the wayside. And we'll end up in a situation where valuations for ICOs are maybe a little bit better than the valuation you can get from private investors, maybe even twice as good, but not 100 times as good. And today we're seeing valuations 100 times as good, and there's simply no logic to that whatsoever.
Okay, so now I'm curious, how many people here in the audience have raised money or are raising money or will be raising money through ICOs? Keep your hands up for a second. Okay, quite a few. Keep your hands up if you think your ICO is good. Okay, statistically I think we have a problem, right? Because everyone's ICO is good. So I think you're all right, because, you know, had it not been good, you would not be smart enough to come here to the conference today. My question actually is about next year. So we're going to have pretty much the same audience, probably a bigger room, because, you know, more people are going to hear that you can raise money through ICOs. What is going to be the biggest difference in your view from this year to next year in terms of technology adoption, or the one thing that people think is going to happen this year is not going to happen? One thing that people are ignoring this year is going to be more significant, more clear next year? Anything going to change, or are we going to be in the same room with the same topics again?
Okay, so first of all, goes without saying, I think next year we'll see a lot more people from outside the banking or financial industry. On the other hand, I think that companies or enterprises that will go through the endeavor of implementing a blockchain solution will find out that the first major step they have to take, the major frog leap, is a digital one. Actually digitize whatever asset you want to, you know, trade and manage on the blockchain itself. And that is not an easy task, I can tell you from personal experience. So I think that might be a little longer, might take a little longer than people assumed. Also, I think that once more blockchain solutions or projects or whatever will transform from being innovation initiatives to actual practices or you know, hands-on projects, they will have to be evaluated against standard tools, and not all will make it through the business case cutoff, I think, and that is something you have to also.
So on the enterprise blockchain side, I think we'll just hear about more and more blockchains in production, and we'll just realize that they're actually quite boring, and it's simply a useful solution to a set of problems, and we won't really be having conferences about it any more than we have conferences about relational databases today, even though, well, there are specific platforms that have their conferences, but you know, every single large business and government institution and non-profit today has many relational databases at its core, and we are all written up in endless relational databases with our ID numbers and our names and our addresses, and no one's excited about it, no one's writing about it in the media, because it's just a useful tool that's applied where it's appropriate. So I don't think we'll be there with blockchains next year, but hopefully we'll be a step in that direction. In terms of the kind of ICO public blockchain side, the per investment returns of last year's ICOs will hopefully be clearer by this time next year, so maybe that will make people less excited about it. And a bunch of people, hopefully no one in this room will be in prison, for violating securities laws, and that may also slightly cool the industry. But you know, I'm not a lawyer, and I wish you luck with that.
If anyone here does not have an idea for an ICO yet, I think raising money for a blockchain-based jail could be a good for next year. Are there any questions from the audience?
You mentioned that Bank of Berlin are going to, at some point, or moving forward, adopt blockchain. Is that for internal processes and procedures, or is that also for customer-facing applications? And the second part of that is, what is the bank's view of blockchain business as customers?
Start with the first one because I'm not sure I got the last one. And thank you for your question. Well, a blockchain project or initiative or solution will naturally address outside connections rather than inside or internal ones. At Pauline, our first blockchain initiative that was announced actually a few months ago will handle digital guarantees. The bank guarantees, for anyone who's not familiar, bank guarantees is a trust mechanism between different parties of a business engagement in which the bank guarantees that should you fail to meet the terms, the bank will cover your obligations. And this trust mechanism is today printed out on a very fine piece of paper and being manually processed from end to end. And what we're going to do is start initiating bank guarantees as a digital asset and manage them as such over time. And for that to happen, you need the customers involved and also the beneficiaries, obviously, who get the guarantee. So yes, external for sure. And the second one? Sorry. As I mentioned before, the bank, prior to that, you would say that customers don't really engage in the blockchain. Usually customers, what they do is they import Bitcoin. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, until the regulator sets the relevant infrastructure to work under, we won't be able to engage. However, once they do, I'm not sure, I hope I'll be the first in line to be there, but I can't promise that.
Okay, I can guarantee that next year, same room, same conference, regulator has not made up their mind yet, so don't hold your breath. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us, and bon appetit. Enjoy lunch.